Welcome to From the Museum at Marshall Amplifiers, and in this particular video we're looking at the vintage modern. So these were available, there was two heads I think, 100 watt, 50 watt, and then combos.
One combo, the 50 watt, which was actually more like a JTM 45 power.
Okay.
It gave 30 watts really. That was made into a combo.
Right, okay.
Like a blues breaker type of power and stuff.
Yeah. But again, the idea with vintage modern, from the name especially, was vintage sound, would you say, but with modern features?
Yes. In particular, when I had been working on the Super 100 JH, the Hendrix, and the 40th anniversary, one thing that I always thought was that the evolution of most Marshall heads, with the advent of more gain and more features, was always based on the JMP foundation. You know,
sure.
the JMP plexi with the L34s.
Yeah.
But the JTM amps never ever really evolved in that same way. And I thought that was a bit of a shame, because they had a bit of a different sound, you know. And I thought it would be nice to give the JTM a modern version, you know.
Right.
So a JTM 4500 with like a master volume, with an effects loop, with a master volume,
reverb as well, yeah.
Reverb. Although interestingly, I didn't want to put the reverb on.
Okay.
I didn't want to put the reverb on. I didn't think it needed a reverb, but I was kind of overruled on that, so I put one in.
It's there if you want it. You don't have to
it's there if you want it. If you don't want it, just take
Yeah.
it. You know, turn it off. Again, it uses KT66s, like the very, very early JTM 4500s.
Yep.
It's got it's quite a unique. The gain control is split into two separate gain controls. One which does the high frequency as part of your sound, and the other does the low frequency part of your sound. And the reason for that is, I always thought the JCM 800s, because I'm a Strat player, I always thought the JCM 800s were great for guitars with humbuckers.
Yep.
But for guitars with single coils, I always thought they were a bit too top-endy and not enough.
Yeah, a little bit sharp.
Yeah, they were definitely a humbucking friendly amp. So I thought, I want to make an amp that suits any guitar.
Yep. Okay.
You know, and I wanted to be very, like, you know, you could dial it in for any, no matter what you had, a Gretsch or wherever, you know. So the body and the detail are basically there to, if you've got a Strat and you want to give it a bit more oomph, then you would just give it a bit more body.
Yeah.
And put no detail. You know, if you had a humbucker and you wanted to give it a bit more edge, but don't bring the bottom end up, just give it a bit more detail, etc.
So essentially you can fine-tune the amp to your guitar,
yes.
really?
Yeah. And people mistakenly think of this amp as a two-channel amp. It's not.
Okay.
It's not. There's two dynamic ranges. Now, if you go on to the high dynamic range, which is basically giving it its full dynamic range from clean to the full, you know. If you want a clean sound, you have to turn your guitar down to about 2 or 3. And what that means basically is that you've only got them two notches, 2 or 3 notches to access all your clean tones.
Yeah.
So the low dynamic range, well, that if you put that on, it means that all of those clean tones change to the full expanse of your volume pod. So you've got your clean sound at 10, 9, 8, 7, you know. Yeah. It's a resolution thing, you know.
Right.
So that's what that is, basically. It's not a two-channel amp. And people go, oh, but the high dynamic range is much louder. Well, it would be if you were turning your guitar down and turning it up. And it's quite old school, you know.
I was going to say very old school. I mean, it's a bit of a lost art now, isn't it, using the volume control on the guitar? I mean, like a lot of the players still do that. They still use the guitar as you know, a control, if you like, to increase or decrease their dynamics or their sound on stage.
Well,
everyone does it with pedals now, don't they?
There's a million different settings within that volume control,
Yeah.
far more than any presets things,
Yeah.
you know. And I thought one of the reasons was I actually thought, like, you know, I would like to preserve that.
Yeah.
You know, not for everybody, everybody to their own, but you know, it was kind of getting to be forgotten, that way of working, and I thought it's a bit, you know, it's just getting left behind, and I thought, no, let's give it a bit of a boost.
Because as well as decreasing volume on your guitar, I mean, well, I say volume, it doesn't really decrease the volume, does it? It changes the sound.
It changes the volume a bit,
Yeah.
but it will do.
Yeah, but for me, you know, again, I came from the age of using the volume control because all the players I listen to, but it actually changes the tone of your guitar a hell of a lot, doesn't it? The pickups, how they respond.
Yeah.
You can make your guitar a lot more jangly just by making volume control changes.
Yeah.
So again, that amp seems perfect for the player who needs their guitar to speak.
It reacts, and it was designed to react, you know, with the guitar's volume control settings and the playing dynamic. So in other words, if you dig in, or if you lay back playing quite softly, it'll react to that very well, which a lot of old school players are all about that.
Sure.
So I mean, for this amp's, Robin Trower uses this amp, and he's the epitome of that sort of style. Doug Aldrich played this. Doug Aldrich launched this amp. Paul Gilbert.
Yep.
And Paul Gilbert loved that facility of dialing in the two gains. Slash told me that he has one of these in his home studio and writes on it. Like I say, it was a very well received amp. It was an amp basically that would put out what you put into it. It wouldn't homogenize it. So basically, if you're an artist who is a really good player and you have a very expensive guitar, it won't make your very expensive guitar sound like a £300 guitar.
No.
Or it won't make your very expensive guitar and a very inexpensive guitar sound the same. Let's say is a better way of putting it. And it'll also, whatever you're playing, you know, articulation is, it'll deliver it.
Totally irrelevant to the design, I know, but the finish on these amps, I know they're available in the standard black, or this, which a lot of people associate with the vintage modern.
The finish was just, I wanted it to look regal. It's a black Levant, but it has a purple rolled on top of it, which doesn't quite go into all of the grooves. So it's actually like a black-purple marbling effect. And my idea behind that was in the old Superman comics, when you saw the blue fleck in his hair, which made it look blacker. Whereas it would have the same effect here. So when you put the vintage modern on the dark stage, it looks black, very, very black. If you put it in the sunlight, it looks very purple.
Yeah.
You know, whereas the black stuff, it doesn't look as black. And I wanted it to look classy. Hence the gold cap handles. And Marshall had been putting the just the normal handle,
Yes. With the plastic. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was just a separate. It came out at the same time as the JVM. It was just to differentiate them a bit, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Two very different amps.
Two very different amps. And this was for the people who would be daunted by all the bells and whistles.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously people who didn't just want the simplicity would go for something with all the bells and whistles.
Yeah. I mean, this when these came out, these amps spoke to me because I always liked the classic Plexi era kind of Marshalls, but they were always too loud, or I wanted something a little more
usable.
Controllable. Yeah, exactly that. And it delivers that in spades, but obviously you've got that factor of I can turn myself down, I can add the reverb if I want to, or I can add my own effects in the loop. Modern features, hence it being called vintage modern.
Yeah. It was. I mean, basically, it's the tone. It's the tone that's got its foundation in the JTM years, with the modern features that were traditionally put on the JMP
Yes.
amps. So you could have that, whereas you couldn't before. Yeah, I mean, it's a tone machine. It's basically, the vintage modern is a tone machine with modern usable features. It might not be for everybody, but if you like the tone that it gives and the way it will deliver what you put into it, good or bad, then it's an amp that you like, you know.